media and entertainment, movies, games, commercials, like you name it, people are looking to recreate our physical world into a digital world.
We used to think reality capture was laser scanning on a tripod, and now we literally do laser scanning from an iPhone, and we have imagery, and we have aerial, and we have subsurface.
And there's all these intricacies into the data format, how metadata is embedded, all these things that we're talking about from a software perspective.
It's a risk mitigator. It's everywhere.
Do you feel like some of it's hype, or do you feel it's all realistic right around the corner?
Realistic right around the corner.
I see reality capture as a way to understand and to gain that information with contextual value.
Exposing our failures as failing forward for each other, with each other.
And if we can all talk the same language, if we could all have kind of the same thought process, I think that would be the best thing. Alignment, yep.
All right, so we're going to be talking a little bit today about kind of our standard state of affairs as well as where we're going and where we think we're going for the future. I'll go ahead and just give a quick introduction to myself. My name is Greg Hale. I'm the owner and executionist of Hale Technology in Practice, basically a service provider in the industry for the last 12 years. Again, a lot of breadth of knowledge in VDC, reality capture, scan to BIM, all things related to buildings. We'll go on down the line the panel with Valentin. Go ahead and start with you and give you a little bit of background for yourself.
Yeah, hi, I'm Valentin Malavé. I'm a business development manager with Regal, focusing on the TLS side, terrestrial laser scanning, and with a background in construction. So hope to give you all my best here.
Fantastic. And I'm Julia Guerra. I'm the solutions architect here at FlyGuys. FlyGuys is a reality data capture network, meaning that we have somewhere around 17,000 Part 107 pilots. We don't only capture through the eyes of a drone, but that's about 90% of our business. We do also do some Matterport terrestrial scanning and high fidelity scanning as well.
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. I'm Bradley Adams. I'm Senior Vice President of Sanborn Geospatial, and I manage our entire transportation business unit.
My name is Dylan Gorman. I am the founder of PilotBite. We do a lot of training, consulting, research and development, and educating the entire industry on drones for commercial and industrial use cases.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Clark Yuan. I am the founder and CEO of Stitch 3D. We're a SaaS company that is enabling spatial data assets to be more easily viewed on a cloud environment. Prior to starting Stitch 3D, I was a former Army intelligence officer.
Hello, I'm Breezy Duncan. I work at Greenlight 360, and we are a LiDAR and photogrammetry service provider. I run all of our aerial operations and serve as our in-house LiDAR and photogrammetry expert.
All right, thank you all. Just as a reminder, we are going to have the Slido questions. So if you guys do have questions for the panel related to our topic, please go ahead and send those in. For all of my friends that want to basically heckle me as well, go ahead and throw them out there, get on the big screen and see where we go from there. We're going to break at about halfway through the show and try to venture into those questions, or we'll see, maybe we need to ignore them. But we'll go from there. We'll start off with a little bit of a big picture for a starter. For the panel here, when you think about reality capture today, what does that mean to you beyond just hardware and software? Valentin, let's go ahead and start with you.
I'm saying it's reality capture today. It's all about collaboration and the means of getting information ready to be ingestible by different teams on the downstream of taking or collecting data and down to the modeling, or it can be as inspection or whatever the team are down the road, right? Ingesting all the data.
I would say analytics and insights. You know, the people who are requesting this data from my seat typically have no idea what they're requesting. They don't know what type of data. They don't know what kind of sensor or what technology that is. They know that they need a report or an identifying factor that tells them a piece of information. So they may never actually look at the reality data capture, but the insights from it is what they're building the basis of their business on.
So some insights to actionable items.
Absolutely.
From that data collection. Brad, how about you?
I'm just so amazed at what the definition of reality capture has evolved into. The fact that we used to think reality capture was laser scanning on a tripod, and now we literally do laser scanning from an iPhone. and we have imagery, and we have aerial, and we have subsurface, and the amount of intelligence, the amount of insight that we can gain from reality capture, especially when we consider that it is so broad, that a picture is reality capture, and it can be leveraged in the same format, in the same fashion that a laser scan model is leveraged. And as we talk, the opportunity to assist and consult with our clients to give them the best result at the lowest price point is really an incredible opportunity for all of us.
I think to build on that is it's become a whole lot more affordable, right? You mentioned that we can use iPhones now. 10 years ago, we had to use $500,000 sensors to achieve what we have today. And I think the accessibility and affordability has brought down so many barriers to entry, where you can run to Walmart and get a cheap drone and collect very valuable, actionable data. Something that we haven't seen in the last, recent bit here.
Absolutely.
I think maybe to give like an opposite opinion of what Brad and Dylan, you guys are talking about. Like when I think about the industry, I think of it as very fragmented because like what you're talking about, Brad, like it's grown so quickly. There's so many new capabilities out there now that are affordably priced that you're actually starting to see a lot more hardware and software workflows, customer requests, and systems that have become very fragmented. And I think that fragmentation creates a disorganization that then leads to mistrust, which ultimately leads to fear. And for me, I think fearful money tends to stay on the sidelines. So those within the industry know like all the systems that we're talking about here. But I think for me, it's like, how do you get the reality capture out to the broader industry and get sideline money that's currently, fearful of entering the industry to come in?
By you, Breezy.
I think for me, I align a lot with Valentino and how he kind of views everything. I see reality capture as a way to bridge the physical and the digital world, really, and to understand and to gain that information, but more importantly, with contextual value, and that's I think where it really shines.
Something I want to just remind our panel and our audience as well. When we think about reality capture, we tend to skew towards our own perspectives and opinions. I happen to be from the building design and construction industry, so I immediately think of reality capture and laser scanners and photos and photogrammetry. But there's endless opportunities to capture reality, whether it's media and entertainment, movies, games, commercials, like you name it. People are looking to recreate our physical world into a digital world, and it's going to come from all sorts of different sensors. Cameras, you think about the latest cars and vehicles and all the sensors that are all over that. They're mapping our environment consistently, and then we're collecting that, and now we're going to have data and analytics about all this data we're pulling. So it's really recreating the physical world into a digital world and being able to not about the technology, the people, the outcomes that are coming from that, and that's really what we're diving into. We're going to venture on still into kind of the current state of the industry, but we're going to use our one-word question. If one of you had to describe the current state of reality capture with that one word, what would that word be? And of course, explain yourself. Julie, you get to go first.
Okay, I'm going to go with accelerating. This industry, just like kind of like what we're saying here, that it is accelerating rapidly. Technology is getting cheaper, it's getting easier to build, the adoption is getting easier, and it's accelerating almost beyond what we can keep up with. I'll say that beyond, we've never kept up with it. It started as a rogue industry where cowboys were flying, and then we've slowly worked in regulation. And when things are moving really rapidly, it's potentially ripe for innovation, but also ripe for maybe convoluted or incorrect policies not applying to the general public appropriately. So I would say accelerating in this specific time right now, this in the past year and a half, probably to the next 3 years, I would say we're in a microcosm of accelerating space in this world.
I definitely agree. How about you, Dylan?
I'm going to cheat a little. I'm going to say knowledge base. And I'm a bit biased here, given I have an education platform, but
Yeah, that's 2 words.
that's what I said. I cheated.
Oh, okay.
But I think when I first started, there was no way for me to learn how to actually do this. It was just brute force and constantly failing forward is the key word here. I have a tattoo on my arm that says succeed through failure. And I believe that every single day. And I think all of us here have had multiple failures to get to where we are today. And so I think with what we have in 2025, the knowledge base, again, I'm cheating, is so much more rich, right? There's so many different tools, so many different technologies, so many different applications of what we have, but now we know how to use it in depth compared to what we had 5-10 years ago.
All right, Breezy, I'm going to ask you to chime in, and I'm also going to let you follow that up with, where you see it at today with your one word, but also where you see it growing in a little bit of a transition.
Okay. So it's maybe less eloquent, but growing is just the first word that comes to my mind. To Julia's point, it's accelerating. Excuse me. Maybe about 5 years ago, people on the mainstream were finding out it exists, and now it's becoming more and more well known, and our clients are becoming educated, and they're starting to understand what it is we actually do. So we're having to educate our clients less, and we're able to get down into the real workflow and really understand it, all of the nuts and bolts. And so that's been really important, and I think growing is a simple word, but it's so true. And you said the second question was
just where do you see it going from there? It's growing now. What's going to happen in 3 to 5 years?
Okay. I think that we're going to see that continue, and I think that we're going to start seeing more and more clients come to us. I think, sales is going to get easier because that value add that we're actually offering is becoming more and more apparent the more people understand what it is that we are offering. So I think that we're going to be able to provide our services, and we're going to be able to continue working on what it is that we're building. And we're going to have to fight for it less because our clients, we don't have to explain to them, they get it.
All right, Clark, here's your opportunity to blow it up.
So I agree with what all of you said. I think going back to my first point about the industry being fragmented, I would think of the industry as also being esoteric for people who don't know all the systems and tools. To your point, Breezy, about it being able to better manage sales through a process that is growing. The way I think about it is the industry is growing despite all the fragmentation and the disorganized processes and workflows. It points to the potential energy that this industry has. But I think there also is an education curve that needs to be scaled outside of the industry. So how do you bring reality capture to industries that are not currently aware of the potential for this industry to actually do good for their applications as well? And I think this is where education comes in, right? Like what we're doing here at RCN, what Dylan, you're doing with your channel. How do you remove the esotericism from the industry? So that way, when people are looking at scanners, it's not just talking about price, it's talking about capabilities, what applications can you actually use it for? When you're talking about drones, the same conversation, software, workflows. So I think there's a layer of mysticism that people look at a point cloud and they go, wow, that's really cool, I get it right away. But how do you get them to understand what it can actually do for their industry?
And if I may, that actually goes to my word, which is usability, right? Because once you have a purpose, once you have enough knowledge to understand the use case, then it all drips down to what everyone here has been saying, right?
But I have a concern in that I think sales may continue to be easier, but I worry that success is going to be harder to achieve. And I worry because of accuracy, precision, scope, price, and I continue to think the more things change, the more they stay the same. And I still remember vividly that we were hired to do a full building scan in a federal courthouse in Atlanta, and we were given $100,000 to scan the building, but the scope said 100% coverage and 100% of the building. And we had a project manager who wanted to hold us to that scope. And my on-site field guy called me and said, Brad, I need you to come to Atlanta. And I said, okay, I'll be there tomorrow morning. And we walked in, and the field supervisor for the federal government said, you have to scan every flat plane in this entire building to meet your scope, which meant we had to go into closets and shut the closet door and scan a 4x4 closet. We had to pull dumpsters away from the building wall and scan the wall behind the dumpster because the scope said 100% coverage for 100% of the building. So we got paid $100,000 to do that project, and it cost us about $250,000. And what was detrimental to the entire organization is that the federal government canceled the program to scan these buildings because they said, we can't afford $250,000 per building. Whereas if we would have gotten the scope appropriate, we could have done it for $60,000, given them exactly what they needed. And that's what I worry about in today's world, that we overpromise because of all the competition. Mm-hmm. We have so many different groups that are saying, we can do this. We can give you 100th of a foot absolute accuracy. Mm-hmm. No, you can't. And even if you could, why would you want to? But we have those challenges moving forward because competition is going to be extreme. And everyone is going to be looking at how they can have a leg up. Mm-hmm. And that's where I worry about the success of programs.
Mm-hmm.
I love all the comments, acceleration, growth, esoteric, lots of great comments. You know, from my own experience, this acceleration is phenomenal in this industry. Consider myself a technologist and an expert in a lot of these things, and it is outpacing what I'm capable of digesting. So there's so much growth in the industry. And it's something I've learned over time is that all of this education and change takes more time than anybody expects. Same thing with like usability. The technology is going to outpace our usability. Like we have to catch up to that technology to a certain extent. So it's great to see that. It's a business that I think we should all really admire, that is going to continue to accelerate and grow and become a complete profession across the world. So we're in the right industry. You know, no matter what segment that is, I think we are in the right industry. All right, on to our next question here, adoption and ROI. So with adoption often comes down to ROI. Can we make a profit, or are we going to get that return on our investment? So how do you help your clients or teams justify investing in reality capture, basically making that justification for it? Brad, do you want to head us off on this one?
It is the ability to provide a metric that they haven't commonly been able to define. I told the story on the podcast that we were able to have a return on investment on a very early project because the engineers said, I can sleep at night. And when you consider that is the level of confidence that we're giving an engineering group in the as-is conditions, that's a return that is incalculable. You can't define what that really means. But then you also have projects where within 60 days, you can prove to a client that you have returned greater than the cost because of what they were able to save either in construction costs or engineering costs or maintenance or whatever that case may be. But I think that's one of the advantages of a network like RCN, because none of us are smart enough to be able to identify that 100% of the time. But I can learn from Julia, and I can learn from Dylan and Breezy, and I can say, wow, they've used this successfully. I can use this successfully, and we can learn how to promote that ROI across the board.
So maybe Valentine, you're a little bit more on the hardware side, et cetera. How do you justify an ROI to your clients?
To me, I always see the bottleneck is time, right? So when you're more productive, when you can deliver faster your point clouds, your images, everything that your following team is going to be needing as an input for them to keep on delivering, that is a game changer, right? So it's a necessity. You need to be faster. You need to be keep up with times. Everything's going towards to automation, to more speed, to more reliable data, to having a more comprehensive data sets actually that can actually be built for better decision making and faster decision making, right? So it comes down to that.
Clark, how about you?
I think if we think about the value chain for a business that we can provide, so I think about it in three buckets. You can help a business find work, do work, and deliver work. And the ROI we want to offer to this industry is how do you allow clients to better deliver work? So many times when you capture a beautiful point cloud or a beautiful orthomosaic or whatever it is that you're delivering to your clients, it's, like I said yesterday in my product presentation, it's being shipped on a hard drive. And so when I think about helping a client make a decision, it's not just the accuracy and the precision, it's timeliness of that accuracy and decision. So if, someone can make a decision within the first 5-10 seconds of receiving a deliverable versus waiting 3 days to, get a hard drive, there's a lot of value in terms of ROI from the timeliness of the delivery, which is why we went to the cloud, which is why we think there's a lot of potential that's being locked up for this industry. That ROI could be captured if you have cloud-enabled workflows and cloud-enabled delivery.
Yeah, to kind of close out this particular topic, just thinking about, a lot of people think directly towards money, like how much money am I going to save? That's the immediate question, but it's not always about money. It's about risk mitigation or value added
100%.
in a lot of these processes. And you kind of have to mix a lot of those and look at those from different perspectives. So some great answers there. So we're going to switch to some challenges. Dylan, so what's the single biggest barrier to adoption today? Maybe technology, training, trust, anything else you can think of?
I think trust, to be honest. I think it builds on your point of just the overpromising from the sales side, where we have all these different tools that can give you millimeters of accuracy, centimeters of RTK precision, but none of that really matters if you don't actually understand it, right? And you have to be able to apply it to what your client's wants and needs are. Sometimes the client's not always right. Sometimes you need to educate them and say, hey, let's take a few steps back and figure out, okay, what is it that you actually need to then be able to provide that value?
All right, you want to be quoted on that? The client's not always right.
I'll be quoted on that, yeah.
How many clients do you have?
Breezy, how about you? What are your main obstacles, main challenges? What do you see?
Yeah, so I think, certainly our main obstacle, I believe, is that we're actually feeling a lot of pressure from our clients to be less accurate because they would rather spend less money. So we're actually finding that we're capable of this incredible precision, and that half the time it's getting wasted because the client says, yeah, I don't care about all that. Just tell me how quick you can do it. Tell me how cheap you could do it. And that's, that's something that we're trying to transition into and be capable of being able to explain that ROI back to them and explain, okay, yes, we can do that. And still trying to explain what it is that we can do, and trying to give that value add. Back home, we have this term called lagniappe. And it actually means to give a little something extra. And so we really take it upon ourselves to find some way to give the client something that they weren't expecting, which can be hard when the client's expecting a lot for not very much. But I do think that that's one of our biggest obstacles. And you mentioned, would you say that it's technology or people or trust? I think that people might be another side of that coin, because I don't know about you all, but I'm off in Oklahoma. When we're hiring, we're not exactly sifting through resumes. And so I think finding quality people and the time to train is maybe the other biggest obstacle that we run into, because I'm busy delivering projects, but I also need to make sure that all of my team are meeting the standards that we've set.
Is the demand outpacing the capability to meet that demand?
I don't think so necessarily. It can be tough, but I think that technology and the new the improvements that they've made in the technology seems to be keeping up. And so what we are capable of has grown in my 6 years at this particular company just because the tech is making us more capable.
Yeah, I want to say that our biggest barrier is ourselves. The potentially not the people in this room, but the people who are snake oil salesmen, entrepreneurs, people who are maybe just looking at this industry as money, because there's a lot of money to be had in this industry. There's so many different avenues that we could go in. I think my biggest concern of the barrier of true adoption and actually making this industry what the people in this room really want is the people element, letting down the barriers, being transparent with each other, not just going in to make a quick buck, doing the little lanyap, little extra. We say that in Louisiana too, just a little something extra, that it's not a gift basket for your client because you're trying to appease them. It's hey, I'm here with you and I want to do this with you and I want to make this the best thing that we possibly can because you have no concept of what this is. And I know all the breadths of the possibilities it is. And we just need to take our time together. So I say, being really transparent and open, we can't do that yet. The holograph does not exist yet. The Iron Man moving the model around in space does not exist, and that's okay. Let me show you what we can do today that will blow our socks off still. We don't have to make it up. We can be completely transparent, still have that entrepreneurial spirit. Still, everybody makes money still, but doing it in a place with integrity and honesty and with the intent of making this industry exactly what we need it to be, which is one that's on a foundation of truth.
And it's still so important that it still comes down to the same things: communication, breaking down the silos. We've been talking for 30 years. Scan it once, use it over and over again. And that happens so infrequently. And it's because we don't communicate. We don't take down the silos. We don't look at things as an opportunity to leverage multiple uses for single collection. And I look forward to the day that we are able to do that we are able to do a single approach, leveraging all of the different tool sets to create a deliverable that the client can leverage for all of their needs. I think you mentioned it yesterday, the number of times you guys are flying the same building or doing the same things over and over again. And
same client.
And you can only imagine how often I face that in DOT.
Oh,
I was in a DOT office just last month that they spent $23 million on a program and then spent $8 million to go and acquire the same sensors to do the program again. It's like, okay, we could have built a road with that. At least one. And so communication and the ability to share, and that's also one of the advantages of these types of forums, is that we do share internally within this profession, which allows us to provide better service to our clients.
Excellent. Great answers. You guys are doing fantastic, right on pace and not going a little too far left or too far right. So great job. We're going to venture into the questions. Hopefully we can get the questions up here. Oh, fantastic timing. Okay, we'll see here. I'm going to just pick one out. Breezy, I see your name on here. I'm going to pick you out here. Question for Breezy. How quickly do you see 3DGS, which is Gaussian Splats, becoming the new standard for interactive spaces for use in game engines and VR?
Well, you asked the right person. So actually, I think that Gaussian Splats are going to be huge, assuming that they aren't already. I mean, we all know that they've already taken our industry a little bit by storm. But I see just an incredible texture in these Gaussian splattings that you don't see in a lot of the other tech, and we've all seen just an absolutely lunatic UV map. So they can be a little bit confusing, and I think that there's a little bit of a learning curve with it. Surprisingly, it sounds really simple, but I think when it comes to gaming, like you're talking about, and this media where the visualization is so important, I think Gaussian splatting is going to become maybe even the standard.
All right, let's see if I can pick out another one here. Let's see, how will licensed survey boards affect the future of reality capture service providers, and what risks are owners taking by not acknowledging it. Brad, maybe I'm going to tap you for this one here for a second.
Well, it's an interesting perspective, right? Because, for instance, in Texas, we've already absorbed the surveying board under the engineering board, and I am nervous as much about what the future of professional surveyors and professional engineers are as I am how does that affect this profession, because we are not producing the professionals that we need to produce to maintain that level of service that our clients need. And we really need to work on how do we approach including this profession into those licensing boards. I know that ASPRS now has a designation for mobile mapping and a designation for terrestrial LiDAR. And TxDOT has made a huge step while they have allowed that to be a pre-qualification for doing work in the state for the department, which is huge because previously you had to be an engineer or you had to be an RPLS. And so now they're giving us an avenue to keep people in the profession and allowing them to do that work. And I think that's an approach that needs to be shared across all the states, is we have to find a way how to legislate performance and professionalism, but we have to give people the avenue to achieve that. We had a tremendous challenge in Texas specifically because overnight they changed the requirements for surveyors. And they said that you had to have a 4-year degree.
Right.
And surveyors, if they wanted to be a surveyor and they were able to do it with a 2-year degree and then 4 years of experience, that was their path. And then all of a sudden the licensing board took that away from them almost overnight. And we lost a tremendous number of surveyors because if you're going to spend 4 years in school, then go be an engineer. And you get the same licensing and you don't have to spend 2.5 years cutting line in Dallas in August because nobody wants to do that. So I think it is important for our licensing boards with input from our profession to give us an avenue for success.
Yeah, I think to Julia's point earlier, people and us, sometimes the barrier to this adoption, legislation is one of those key that it's often takes too much time to catch up to the technology that is available to perform a task. And I think that's one of those key items. Anything else you want to say on that, Julia?
Well, I was going to, kind of going back to the trust element that Dylan was mentioning, if I'm a surveyor and I've been doing survey for however many years and I'm on this board and I hear some Joe Schmo is telling me that he has 2 centimeter accuracy with something he picked up at Target, of course I'm not going to believe him. Of course I know that he doesn't have global accuracy. And by and large, the majority of our industry does not have the same accuracy that they tout. So I would say that it's just like you're saying here that we ultimately need to hold ourselves to a higher standard, require that of ourselves, but also build that trust from the credible individuals. It's incumbent upon us to convince the rest of the world that this data is correct. And that does mean that we can't just show them the delta of how correct it is from the corrected items. We have to show them in comparison with something that they trust, something that's real to them.
Absolutely.
And that's incumbent upon us. They're not going to pay me to convince them that my stuff is better. And that ROI kind of dovetails into that. If I go out and my buggy topo does 1,000 acres and then I fly 1,000 acres and then we compare, that's really where the juice is. That's where they say, okay, I know it took him 2 weeks and I know it took you 3, 5, 7 hours, however long it takes. And I know that this matches up and I can trust it.
Yes.
Awesome. I'm going to do one more question here, then we're going to move on with kind of our agenda. As reality capture evolves, integrating AI and automation, how should decision makers realistically calculate ROI when many of the benefits are indirect, like fewer errors or improved safety, rather than direct savings? I happen to have a personal passion for this one, and I'll let anybody else chime in on this as well. But most of the stuff we do in reality capture is a risk mitigation in some way, shape, or form when we're dealing with construction sites or design, things like that. There's not a direct return. It's honestly like, what risk did you avoid? And you continuously have to prove your value. Someone paid you a certain amount of money to build or capture that reality. And then along the way, you're looking for that issue. But when that comes up, absolutely bring that back up and say, we do believe we just saved you a lot more money than you paid us to do that work. You can't undersell it. You can't like leave it alone. You have to continuously, like, honestly, no matter what you do, continue to show your value to the clientele and others of the way that you either avoid a risk or you save them time or save them money, and it will stand out to prove the next job over and over again. Anybody else want to chime in?
I just want to say the greatest value of anything is humanity, obviously. And in so many industries, we all know that OSHA, you tie off if you're above 6 feet. That might seem like a nuisance when you're at 6 feet, but when you get to 50, 100, 400, 700 feet, people die climbing towers every day. Why do we do that? Why do we inspect towers with humans at 400 feet above ground level where they are double clipping off? You know, the greatest buy-in I got from the last company that I worked was when we had a fatality. When OSHA showed up after someone fell out of a tower, and my drone guy was there to fly the tower to do an inspection and investigate what happened. Why did that happen after he fell out of the tower? Why didn't it happen before anyone ever climbed in the tower? Why didn't we see the issue, the break-off point of his tie-off? Why didn't we see that before he was up there? Because we didn't have buy-in. Didn't buy a couple of $4,500 drones.
Well, and to continue the theme from my discussion yesterday, we had a actual project that we submitted a price on to do mobile mapping along the roadway, and the client said that we were too expensive. And the first day that they were out surveying, a surveyor was hit by a car and killed. And we were scanning the next day.
Mm-hmm.
And who, if you were able to see the future, who would not have paid that up front? But we run into the same thing now when we talk about needing to require 0.04 of a foot absolute accuracy on mobile mapping projects, because now we're putting surveyors back on the road to set control to maintain an accuracy that you probably don't need. So it spirals all the way back to our previous discussion of accuracies and requirements and scoping, and it really feels that all of this is a single book, and it's the entire story, and we have to be consistent in telling that story to get the most benefits of all this.
Excellent. Okay, we're going to table any questions for now. On to some other questions that we have here. So we're going to try to switch to a little bit more looking towards the future here. How do you see AI and automation reshaping reality capture in the next 5 to 10 years? And this is one that we couldn't avoid, as much as we're all a little bit sick of talking about AI, et cetera. We have to address it to a certain extent. Valentine, if you want to chime in here to start.
Automation, it's already in our workflows. Automation is needed. Automation, it's, again, saving time. It's everything that matters to, to get into the quicker decision making, right? So it's, automation saves time. Automation saves, it's a risk mitigator as well. So, it's everywhere.
Do you feel like some of it's hype? Or do you feel it's all realistic right around the corner?
It is realistic right around the corner. Yeah, it's not a hype. It's something that we actually need. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Dylan, how about you?
Workflows. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I think outside of the hype machine from it, because I do still think there's a bit of hype around it, right? You have your C-suite that loves to push AI, ML this. None of that actually matters unless you actually put good data in, right? There's a saying, crap data in, crap data out. There's a different way to say it. But it's true, right? I have seen way too many companies that I've done a little bit of consulting with just say, hey, we'll get the cheapest thing and we'll just throw it in there and it's going to build us the best model and it's going to save us X amount of money, and then it fails. And you can't do that unless you actually put good, actionable data that you can get good ROI out of it. And it doesn't really matter what industry it goes towards. So you have to make sure that what you're doing is doing it right and taking the proper steps to facilitate providing that data to an AI or ML model before it can actually be leveraged in the real world.
So do you think it will be disappointing, or do you think it's going to provide that real value?
I think it will. Again, we have so much accessibility to tools now. there's a lot more knowledge base that's being built on how to leverage these tools. We have experts up here that use it every single day, that have people in the field that are gathering terabytes, if not petabytes of data every single day. We have the data, but it's a matter of how do we effectively use it with all of this great technology, right? AI and ML will outpace us. It has outpaced us, but we need to put in the proper work and the proper data in order for it to continue to, benefit the industry as a whole.
Breezy, would you like to chime in on this one?
Sure. I think there's a lot of justifiable concerns around the usage of AI in general. But I think it's really hard to deny how much it's already revolutionized our industry and how much more it can continue to do so, like Dylan says, if we just apply it correctly. And I think that's the really big point on it. And the thing is all I see it doing is minimizing those tedious tasks and allowing the movers and the shakers and the decision makers to back up and to look at it, look at everything that they do in the grand scheme and actually start applying their knowledge in a more creative and more innovative way rather than spending all of those tedious hours picking points and and finding your control and getting it all aligned together and everything. And I just all I see really happening when you apply AI properly is freeing up the humans to do what only humans can possibly do.
Awesome. I do believe it cannot be ignored, and anybody who's feeling like they're too busy to dive into it and play with things, you are going to lose ground very fast. So literally make some time for yourself to dive in, test some things. The answers are not obvious. They take really changing your line of thinking of what's possible with a lot of this automation and AI, and it's only going to come by diving in. All right, how about a collaboration impact? How's reality capture changing collaboration between designers, contractors, owners, builders? Clark, do you have any vision on this?
I mean, we're building software that's enabling collaboration, so obviously I'm a little bit biased about the potential for collaboration to really take off in the space. I was telling a story yesterday about how when I was in the military, I didn't know that you could see a point cloud. I looked at drawings and like screenshots on PDFs and PowerPoints, and that's what we were using to annotate and make decisions off of. And the first time I saw a point cloud, my mind was blown. I was like, this is actually where this picture is coming from. Like, why wasn't I looking at this point cloud to begin with? And, being in intelligence, the decision making happens, it has to be pretty much instantaneous. Otherwise, the opportunity's gone or the target's gone. And so when we're talking about translating intelligence collaboration to just like industry collaboration, I obviously think there's a huge part of the value chain that's missing when you don't have real-time decision making with the data. So whether it's between designers and architects or between service providers and clients or, Intel analysts and like the NGA, the more real-time you can make the data accessible, which we believe can only happen through a web interface, the more powerful that data becomes. So
do you feel like it's becoming a common language? People understand it. You don't have to explain it as much anymore? Or do you feel like you're still bringing people along and trying to catch everybody up to the industry?
For me, there is definitely an education curve because the industry has been so used to desktop-based workflows. There's a mistrust about data security going on the cloud. When you're working with a lot of government clients, they understand the potential and the power for this data to live on the cloud, but they would still rather receive a CD and then, upload it to their local desktop just because of the data security and the sensitivity around some of those projects. So there is still an education curve. I think what we have to be careful though, and going back to what you were talking about AI, is you can't sell snake oil. Like there are certain limitations about what the cloud can enable you to do. It's not like if you're uploading a 250 gigabyte point cloud, it's still going to take us some time to get it up there. When you're talking about AI, like there might be a human in the loop and you can't sell it as fully autonomous. And when you try to sell it as fully autonomous, that's when you start losing trust in the industry. So I think like what Julia is saying is like, it's incumbent on us to not be snake oil salesmen out there. And we were talking about just, flattening that education curve for the cloud. you have to be realistic with the limitations on the cloud. For example, in this conference center, the Wi-Fi is not very good. So when you're trying to pull up a point cloud, 40 gigabyte project, it's going to take some time to load. So just got to be honest.
Brad, you had a unique view on this, thinking of reality capture in the context of geospatial as being a common language.
Yes.
Can you elaborate on that?
Well, and I think back to years ago when we were trying to sell aerial mapping in large statewide projects, and we made, there were portions of entire companies that only dealt with doing statewide programs, and they were millions of dollars worth of investment. And I remember distinctly walking into a potential client's office one day, and they pointed at Google Maps and said, "I get this for free. Why do I need to pay you for $1 million?" And that's the opportunity and the challenge at the same time, because all of these environments have allowed people to think in map space. They think in a geospatial palette. And I am really excited about the future as we continue to evolve and evangelize that as a common language. We all know the stories about installing a water pipeline 2 weeks after you repave the roadway. And you can solve that by having a geospatial palette as your common language, but only if all 100 of the decision makers in that chain are using the same palette, uploading the data because it doesn't matter if the water department is using their geospatial tool set if the paving department didn't. And so the opportunity to break down the silos and break down the barriers and allow everyone to visualize in a geospatial environment is going to be so huge for us. And I look forward to the days that we are all speaking that language, and it's all based on a geospatial environment.
I definitely want to expand on that just for a second. Having been to this conference a number of years, there was definitely a couple years where the common theme for the conference was survey control, like stop screwing up projects and add survey control to the project. We're not hearing that this year. It's kind of common knowledge, common language. But I'm definitely hearing geospatial for the last couple of days saying, okay, where is that thing as the common language? And I think it makes a lot of sense. It starts to integrate a lot of different pieces of data. I talked about reality capture and the future of that. It's all sorts of different sensors coming together at once. And if you're geolocating it, now you can put it in that common data environment. It's not about what is the file name, it's about where is the thing located.
Yes.
So you can start to get this stuff to talk to each other, and I think it's going to be huge as more people recognize identifying where is that thing at.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we're going to dive into just kind of close things out here, just a little bit of future vision in closing. If you could wave your magic wand, solve one problem in reality capture today, what would that abracadabra moment be? Valentine, you get to go first.
I like to save myself up for last.
Last?
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a big, tall order there. Okay, I'll let you think about it some more. Dylan.
Magic wand that would fix everything, huh? We can make everything free, accessible, and we get good data every single time, and we never have to go back to the client for change orders, and the list kind of just goes on. But if things were just so much simpler in terms of the collaboration piece, right? If we can all talk the same language, which I know the word, digital twin is very arbitrary, right? It can mean 100 million different things. But if we could all have kind of the same thought process, I think that would be the best thing. Alignment. Yep.
Breezy, how about you? Wave that magic wand.
My magic wand is open source. Open source data. I really hit my head up against the data siloing and the proprietary suites, and the suites are great on their own, but the truth is, what I do, I don't just use one piece of equipment. I don't remember a project that I've done in the last 6 years that I used only one piece of equipment. And so what I'm having to do is I'm having to work in these 4 different proprietary suites that I am paying different fees for each of. And then I'm having to bring all of that data in together and marry it all together at the very end and just pray that nothing scaled improperly and that nothing went wrong. And then I have to go back to the source and figure out which one of those, which one of you did it. So my dream for reality capture is to be able to capture data on multiple pieces of equipment and bring them into a singular location where I can now actually have complete control over my data because I captured it. And I want to be able to make sure that it is quality and it's aligned and it's beautiful. And then I've got my finished product.
Hear, hear.
Yeah. Okay, Clark, you get an opportunity.
I'm going to say exactly what she said.
Okay.
But what I will say though is like, because obviously from the software side, like when you're trying to talk about collaboration, when you're trying to talk about like building a unified pipeline, every time we're getting a proprietary data set, I know we got the Leicas and the Ferals and the Regals in this room. So, the proprietary data set, in my opinion, it's keeping a cap on where this industry can go.
Yeah.
Because there's so much conversion you have to do when you want to democratize the data. And there's all these intricacies in terms of the data format, how it's, how metadata is embedded, all these things that we're talking about from a software perspective that just makes it difficult. And when you have that layer of complexity, is just building in distrust, disorganized processes. So yeah, unified. We need a PDF or a Word doc file type for this industry.
Yeah. Julia, I'm going to give you your opportunity here.
I just want world peace. That's all I want. But really, though, like, this is not rocket science. It doesn't have to be, all about money. You used the word evangelizing earlier. I love this industry. When I start to talk to people in this room, I love getting to see the fire behind everyone's eyes. And I think it's so critical that we keep honesty, transparency, lowering the barriers between our own processes, exposing our failures as failing forward for each other, with each other, lowering that barrier of entry, making things accessible, little lanyap, from my side, providing things to the pilot side, the data collectors who are maybe working for themselves and, just have a single drone and are building their business. All day long, I'm a consultant internally. I'm the solutions architect for the company. All day long, all I do is just share free information with anyone who has my number, whether it's a client asking for a specific consulting need for something that I'm going to be able to perform, or it's something that I have nothing to do with and they just want to know my opinion. That information is free. My information is free, just kind of like what Dylan was saying earlier. I think that we need to keep ourselves free and honest and keep that open line of communication so that we can have this synonymous relationship with each other in the future of this peaceful environment of we're just here to get the best data. And I might have an edge on you because my data is this way, but it's not because I'm undercutting you in price and being nasty and overselling and underperforming. It's because what I'm doing is right for this client at this time. And you know what? I'll refer to you because you're right for this time and this client. Like, I think we need to stay above board with each other.
Valentine, top that.
Well, I think we've all been talking about this, right? It's a common ground. It is a single source, a single point of the truth, right? Being able to just access data, no matter if it's from Regal or any other sensor, because it just not encompass a slider. It's reality capture, it's imaging, it's audio, it's all kinds of sources of actual one single point in time data, right? That's what we're trying to see. That's what we're trying to take a look at, and that's what we're trying to accomplish. So one single source of truth, one single source of getting access to that information, and being progressive or not, but being able to just get a hold of what you're looking for in a single moment, no matter which where it's come from.
Awesome. Well, I think that we're getting close here to the end here. I'm not going to play off one of the last questions in here to wrap this up here. Kind of going to combine a couple of questions in here. So one of our closing items here, what one tool would unlock the industry, right? Big game changer. And you get one word. One tool that's going to unlock the industry.
Anyone in the audience?
I mean, if we had that, we would have, right?
I'm going to start. I actually think it's the Gaussian Splatting and the Radiance Fields. I am enamored with those tools and the excitement that it brings to our industry and getting other people excited about it. Now, I don't believe it is as a highly accurate information or other pieces of that, but it's going to drive excitement and get people saying, like, wow, what is that? How is that done? And then we get to facilitate that, but then also provide all of the other reality capture, geospatial benefits, high accuracy data, et cetera, beyond the sexy, but the actual value behind the excitement. I mean, to me, 3D Gaussian splatting or whatever Radiance Field is the winner is the one tool that's going to like explode the industry. That's an opinion. Anybody else?
I would say an ecosystem would be the tool changing. So like on the software, not just from the moment that you want a piece of data to figuring out what that equipment is, deploying that equipment, collecting with that, processing it, QCing the deliverable, and executing the deliverable. If all of that was in one ecosystem between the planning, product of planning, product of software processing, that would be my dream. If that was the one tool. It doesn't matter about the rest of it. That's all periphery. If there's an ecosystem, and there's a few out there, we've talked about some of them in the digital twinning earlier today. There's like the Esris and the AConnexes and the ACCs and the Procores of the world, that the backbone ends up being something that's not necessarily reality data capture, and that's okay. But something that I think ACC probably has one of the closest ecosystems, but a lower barrier of entry would be great.
I want a universal translator. I want when someone says digital twin, I want it to mean the same thing to every person when they have the conversation.
Here.
We've been listening to digital delivery, and I started my first transition into technology was implementing inroads back in the 90s and early 2000s, and transitioning from a microstation environment to inroads, and literally I had to convince engineers that they could do design work behind a computer. And now we're talking about digital delivery, and states are spending millions of dollars for digital delivery. When I remember when we started this, digital delivery meant, how do we ensure that my stamp on a set of plans exists without change? And now digital delivery is, how are we going to promote a 3D PDF to a contractor and I can go from Texas to Louisiana to Oklahoma to Alabama and ask the same question and get 5 different answers. And I just want a universal translator. You can speak into your iPhone and it tells you exactly what the definition of all of these things are going to be.
Siri, what is a digital twin?
What does digital twin mean to this group? Because it's going to be different to the other group.
That actually feeds directly into my answer, which I don't know if it counts as a tool, but certainly my word would be standardization. So in very much the same vein, that would be my answer. I want there to be standardized an answer. What is this? Well, here's the answer. And what does this mean? And here's the definition. And standards for data formats, standards for processes. I mean, across the board, I think standardization would just change. I mean, just flip it all upside down.
I would say we need better education. That'd be my one word.
One tool.
Yeah, one word is education. And I think that's why I'm such a big fan of what RCN's doing with committees, what you're doing with your channel. Like, this information, like, education needs to be open source, because like I was talking about earlier, the esotericism of this industry is just like, there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of opportunities, but you don't know what's what. And that leads to the confusion, which, again, like for me, confusion leads to fear, and fearful money stays on the sideline. So we just need standardized education.
I'm going to combine all of it and say simple integration, because I hate paying for so many different accessories, so many different licenses. This camera only works on this system, and if you bought the 2011 model, it's not going to work on the 2020 model, so you got to pay another $20,000 to upgrade. Oh, but guess what? Now you have to get this firmware to work on this. I just want simple integration so that I can get my job done, have my students get their job done and allow us to just get our job done instead of having to constantly go through these hurdles, figuring out, oh, well, Tim's got, the latest version over there and we can't use it because this computer doesn't work with that one. Mm-hmm. That's my biggest frustration. And that's what we need.
Do you have one more?
Yeah, sure. Simplifying education, it's all about it. We just need to make it very, very simple, very understandable, so we can reach most of the people, right? So that way we can create that common language.
Love it.
So, for sure.
I'm going to close it there. I think the panel, very great discussion. We did not have to use our safe word today to yank anybody off of asking.
I didn't see the bomb. I thought there was going to be a bomb here somewhere, and we didn't get to it.
Yeah, we weren't dramatic enough.
No.
Sorry.
Enough fun.
If you guys want spice, you'll have to come to drinks tonight and hear our real opinion.
Yeah. We were going to talk U.S.-China relations, but...
Oh, yeah, if you talk U.S.-China relations, we'll talk about it tonight.
Government shutdowns,
See you on the field. Oh, yeah, government shutdown, too.
I do want to close and just kind of stating with the discussions that we've had here, these are really, in my opinion, the essence of this conference is the conversations and trying to kind of solidify this. These are the conversations we hope all of you are having. We're about halfway through the conference, so if you are not having these kinds of conversations, whether during the day, on the floor, in the after events, etc., come out of your shell a little bit, talk to people. We're all here to talk about this stuff. I've been doing this a very long time, and this is where you're going to learn the most by talking to everybody, including all of us. This is what we're here to do.
Absolutely.
So, encourage you to get out, network with everybody, just talk, flesh this stuff out, and you will come away with the most awesome experience and ready for the next event as well.
Find us on the field tonight.
Yeah.
So thank the audience as well. Great questions. Appreciate y'all. And thanks to our panel members.
Thank you.
All right. You guys.